13 Roads. Here is a tale I have not yet forgotten. Listen. Tonight it is the faceless riders, and what they carry instead of swords. The rod is iron, cold iron, the kind that doesn't warm in the hand no matter how long you hold it. And it is covered, edge to pommel grip to tip, in names. Not symbols, not ciphers. Names. The personal names of every soul the rider has passed on the road, carved into the metal one letter at a time, so fine you need full daylight and a steady nerve to read them. The rod grows heavier with every league a new name added. Not the name of someone the rider killed, the name of someone the rider simply walked past and chose to remember. That distinction will matter before this is over. The second thing you should know: a faceless rider never draws a weapon. In 300 years of record, in ledgers, border tallies, the scratched margins of road wardens' logbooks, there is no confirmed account of a rider unsheathing anything. No sword, no knife, no length of chain. They carry the rod, and the rod alone, and whatever they need done gets done without steel. That should be more frightening than any blade count. It is. The third thing: no one who has spoken to a faceless rider has ever been able to describe the face afterward. Not because the face was hidden, because after the conversation ends, the memory of what the face looked like simply goes. Like a word you knew this morning and cannot find by evening. You remember standing there. You remember every word that was said. You remember the cold coming off the rod. You do not remember the face. You never remember the face. Now, let me tell you what I know, and I will tell it plain, because nothing about the riders rewards decoration. They travel in groups of 3, always 3, never 2, never 4, never alone. They walk at a pace that is difficult to name because it doesn't quite match any human gait. Not hurried, not slow, something closer to inevitable. Their cloaks are the grey of roadstone in winter light, and the cloaks don't seem to accumulate dust the way everything else on the roads does. Travelers who have watched them pass through muddy stretches report this with a specific kind of unease. The mud is on their boots, yes, but the cloaks are dry. The cloaks are always dry. The rods they carry are roughly forearm length. Each one is different, not in shape. They are all the same basic cylinder of black iron, about 2 fingers wide, slightly flared at both ends, the way a torch grip would be. Different in weight, different in how thickly the names are carved. A rider who has been on the road a long time carries a rod so dense with carved script that you can barely see the iron beneath. A rider who is younger, newer, whatever word applies, carries a rod with only a few dozen names on it, and the iron shows dark and cold between them. I have seen a rod with so many names that the original iron was gone. Just names pressed against names, letters cutting into letters, the metal itself consumed by what had been recorded on it. I held it for approximately 4 seconds before the rider who carried it made clear, without a word or a gesture I could later describe, that I should give it back. Let me tell you how I got close enough to read one. I was on the Ashen Road, which is a different story for a different night, and I was 3 days from the last way station, carrying less water than I should have been, and more debt than I cared to think about. 3 figures appeared on the road ahead, grey cloaks, the particular gait, the rods at their sides like staffs, except staffs don't catch the light the way iron does, and staffs don't make that sound. The sound. I should have mentioned the sound earlier. The rods hum. Not loudly. Not the way a struck bell hums, the way a word hums when someone is about to speak it. That sub-audible vibration in the chest of a person who is holding breath before speech. The rods hum that way, constantly, and you feel it in your back teeth before you hear it with your ears. I have asked people who have been near the riders whether they noticed the hum, and about half of them say yes, and the other half look at me like I've described a color they've never seen. The three of them came toward me at that pace. I stepped to the side of the road, which is correct protocol, if protocol is the right word, for encountering them. You don't stand in their path. Not because of any rule anyone wrote down, because standing in their path feels, viscerally, like standing in front of something that doesn't know how to stop. The lead rider, I say lead because it was slightly ahead of the other two, though I could not have told you why I assigned it that role, stopped when it was 4 paces from me. The other two stopped when it stopped. I noticed, in the way you notice things when your body has decided fear is the appropriate response and your mind is running a little behind, that the hum from the rod shifted pitch slightly when they stopped. Lower, more deliberate. The lead rider held out the rod, not offering it, not threatening with it, extending it horizontally between us at approximately chest height, the way a man might present a letter of introduction. And I understood. I cannot explain how I understood, but I did, that I was being invited to look at it, read it even, the names carved into its surface. I looked. There were hundreds of names, thousands possibly, running in continuous spirals from one end of the rod to the other, so small and so dense that reading them required me to lean in to within a hand's width of the iron. I could feel the cold radiating from it, not cold the way a stone is cold on a winter morning, cold the way deep water is cold, that particular temperature that suggests depth rather than simply absence of warmth. I read names, common names, most of them, merchant names and farmer names, and the names of people who walked roads because they had to. Here and there, an unusual one, a name in a script I didn't recognize, a name that was clearly a title that had calcified into identity over generations. And near the grip, where the metal was worn smoothest from handling, near the grip, I found mine, my name, my full name, the one I was given at birth and have not used in years and have told to no one on any road I have walked, carved into the iron in letters no larger than a seed. Not recent. The carving was old, the edges worn smooth, suggesting it had been there long enough to be touched by many hands and much weather. My name had been on that rod since before I was on the Ashen Road, perhaps long before. I stepped back. The rider lowered the rod to its side. The hum returned to its standard pitch, and then the three of them continued walking at their particular, inevitable pace and passed me, and were gone around a bend in the road, and I stood there in the dust of the Ashen Road, with my heart doing things hearts are not designed to sustain for extended periods. I finished my water that night, all of it. I did not sleep. Now, what are they? The short answer is that no one knows, and the people who claim certainty on the matter are the people you should trust least. There are 3 competing theories among the road scholars and the inn philosophers and the various cults that have formed around the riders over the centuries, and none of them are satisfying, and all of them contain something that feels true. The first theory is that the riders are record keepers, not moral arbiters, not judges, not harbingers, simply archivists. That the roads generate something, some residue or currency of passage, and the riders collect it by noting who travels where. Their rods are ledgers. The hum is the sound of a ledger being updated. Under this theory, my name was on that rod because I had been on roads that the rider had also been on, and it had noted me the way a diligent clerk notes every transaction, without judgment, without implication. I find this theory comforting, which is precisely why I do not trust it. The second theory is older and darker, and comes out of the hill settlements east of the Salt Run, where the riders are apparently seen with some frequency. In those settlements, they call the riders the collectors, and not in the archival sense. Under this theory, the names on the rods are not records, they are claims. Once your name is on a rod, you are owed to the rider who carries it. Not immediately, not necessarily soon, but owed. And the riders travel the roads not to observe, but to inventory what is already theirs. And the rods grow heavier, not because more people have been seen, but because more debts are ripening. The people in the hill settlements east of the Salt Run are not, in my experience, given to unfounded alarm. They know their roads. The third theory is the one I find most difficult to hold in my head and have come closest to believing, which is possibly the same thing. It holds that the riders are not collectors of names in any sense, not archival, not predatory. That the rod is a map, that every name carved into it represents a fixed point, a person who is still alive and moving through the world, and that the rider carries them, carries the weight of their continued existence, the way a lamp carries a flame. That the hum is the hum of that weight, that what the riders are doing when they walk the roads at their particular inevitable pace is holding something together, some structural necessity of the world that requires continuous witnessing, continuous notation, continuous passage. Under this theory, if the riders ever stopped walking, the names would stop being true. And names are more load-bearing than we tend to acknowledge. I do not know which theory is correct. I'm not certain the question has a clean answer. What I know is that I have been on roads where I saw the riders 6 times in a single month, and roads where I walked for a year without a single sighting. And the difference between those roads was not one I could articulate in terms of geography or traffic or season. The difference was something more like pressure. The roads where I saw them often felt like roads under observation. The roads where I didn't see them for a year felt, looking back, slightly unmoored, as though certain things that should have been fixed were beginning, slowly, to drift. There is one more thing I have to tell you. It is the thing I have told fewest people, not because it is the most frightening, but because it is the most difficult to frame without sounding like a man trying to assign meaning to a coincidence. 18 months after the Ashen Road, different road entirely, different continent if you hold to the maps, deep in the dark stretch of the Obsidian Way, where the road markers are carved into standing stones rather than wooden posts, because wood doesn't last in that climate. I encountered a single rider, alone, no companions, standing at a junction where 2 paths diverged, holding the rod with both hands, the way a man holds something he needs to be careful with. I stopped. The rider looked at me, or pointed itself at me, or whatever the correct description is when you cannot later recall the face. And it held out the rod again. Same gesture, horizontal, chest height. Look. I looked. My name was gone. The place where it had been was smooth iron, not worn smooth over time, smooth the way something is smooth when it has been intentionally removed. The letters hadn't faded, they had been taken out. The depression of the carving was gone, just iron. I stood there for a long time. The rider waited. And then, I have never been able to fully account for this, it inclined the rod very slightly, barely a degree, toward the path on the right. And then it lowered the rod and turned and walked away up the left path. And I stood at the junction in the Obsidian Way alone, with the sound of my own breathing and a choice I did not understand. I took the right path. I'm still here. Make of that what you will. What I can tell you is that I have thought about it most days since. About whether having your name removed is better than having it added. About whether the rider at the junction was releasing me from something or removing me from something. About whether the right path was the right path because the rider suggested it, or whether the rider suggested it because the right path was already right, and it knew, and the rod knew, and the only entity in that exchange who didn't know was me. These are the questions the riders leave behind them. They do not answer questions. They do not ask them. They walk, and they carry, and the rods get heavier, and every name on every rod is a person who has been seen by something that does not forget. Whether that is a comfort or a sentence, I leave to you. I have seen them 31 times across 9 roads. Each time the lead rider has paused when it passed me. Not long, 2 seconds, 3. The kind of pause that might be nothing. The kind of pause that might be recognition. My name is not on any rod I have been permitted to read since the Obsidian Way. That is either because they gave me back to myself, or because whatever I am now, whatever road I walk now, I am already accounted for somewhere I cannot see. Or there is a 4th rod, one I have not been shown. The riders are still out there. All the roads carry them, in groups of 3, at that particular pace. Someone is being passed right now. A merchant, a soldier, a child cutting a short path through a field that happens to align with older ground. The rod is being held. The hum is in their back teeth. And a name, maybe yours, maybe someone you love, maybe someone you've never met and never will, is being added in letters no larger than a seed. I have walked close enough to read them. I will likely walk that close again. There is a road, not this one, where the riders walk in groups larger than 3, where I have heard reports from sources I trust more than most that the rods carried there are not iron at all. What they are made of, and what is carved into them, and whether the names are the same kind of names. Those are questions I am still assembling the courage to go and ask directly. When I do, you'll hear about it. Good night.